Welcome to the Continental. We hope you enjoy your stay.
Happy New Year to all the listeners, viewers of the Continental, and welcome back. I want to wish you all an amazing, happy, healthy, and successful 2021. I also want to give a special shout out to all the frontline workers who, in the past year, not only just in the healthcare industry, but all the service industries who have really helped us keep us as much on our feet as possible. Without your sacrifice and all your hard work, um, we wouldn't be where we are today, and we'd all be struggling. So, thank you very much, and I hope 2021, brings hopefully a new normal with less fears and brings back some familiar joys in our lives and some normalcy to your day-to-day lives, because you are the true heroes of 2020, and you will be at the front line of 2021 when hopefully things get back to a little bit more normal. So thank you again, and I wish you all happiness and health in 2021. And speaking about heroes, it kind of leads into today's podcast, which we'll get to momentarily. I thought, before we get to today's podcast about the golden age of comic book and comic book movies, I wanted to give a little context to, my interest in comic books and what heroes mean to me. It's always been an interesting dynamic when I look at it in my, throughout my childhood and my adulthood, and my interest still to this day. I actually had to think long and hard, like what actually caught me onto comics. And the funny thing is, it's actually not a comic book or a comic book hero that got me onto comics in the first place. It actually, I was part of the TV generation of cartoons. So I can not shamelessly or shamefully, I don't know, to admit that my interest in comic books and comic book characters arose from cartoons. Whether it was the Batman animated series or Spider-Man or X-Men, the animated series, all those daily cartoons as well as weekend morning cartoons is really what got me into those characters and the incredible storylines that they portrayed in those cartoon episodes, week after week or day after day. And they were awesome because they reflected exactly what was in the comic books. There was no grandiose scheme. There was no, full season build up. It was just every episode there was new challenges. Although I think X-Men, their first season started off with the long search for their friend Morph. But the concepts of all those shows were still the same. The heroes were overcoming the villain with whatever they had, and overcoming the challenges that they faced, even though they might have been undermanned or undermanned or womaned, and potentially overwhelmed. They found a way to get past everybody. So it was just always that episodic problem solving that gave me uh, interest, all bundled up in the coolness of the superpowers of X-Men and Spider-Man heroes, and the villains they had to face. But what's interesting to me though is that even with all those superpowers and all those supervillains on the screen creating such fancy unimaginable experiences that really tickled the imagination of a child, what comic character always intrigued me the most, and to this day is my most famous comic book hero of all. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can figure that out all around, is Batman. Batman is my ultimate superhero, and his character has evolved so much over the years. It's not only just the animated series that intrigued me about him, but I actually, before I even read the comic book itself, I read the book for Nightfall. And Nightfall, which is the Batman arc where Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, or Batman, aka Bruce Wayne, if you really want to speak correctly about the character, has his back broken, and he essentially, by his ultimate, one of his penultimate villains, next to Joker, I would say, which is Bane, who matches him for intelligence, skill, curiosity, and basically just everything that Batman is in terms of you know who he grew up to be, but on the villain side. And he basically broke Batman not only just physically but mentally. And the book did a great job of showing that entire arc. It was quite an awesome visualization from a narrative perspective. And when I read the comic book, it just reinforced it even more, from his ascension, from his returning from that back injury, all the way to having to defeat his selected proteges, Azrael, who turned into a darker version of Batman. It just showed a superhero that was willing to, use all his willpower, all his mental fortitude as a human, just a straight up human, the apex of human capability, even without the technology, to find a way to, reclaim his mantle, but also reclaim who he was, and not just, it's not just about the technology for him. And, Batman, I think that's always what's intrigued me about him. And they've only served to enhance that over the years with all the story arcs since then, the rebirth, the growth of the Bat family, his humanization through his interaction through his son Damian, even the future stories that may not be canon with Batman Beyond, and his taking Terry McGinnis under his wing, his proverbial wing. But it all comes down to just who we can be as humans and what we're capable of doing if we put our willpower to it. And that, now that I think about it, has really helped me see the real heroes in our lives, and reminded, not clinging to that, but immersing myself in that more, and hopefully passing that on to my kid is something that's really important to me, because it's the concept of just as a singular human, what difference can you make to humanity, whether it's your home or your city or your country or the world. Anything is really possible if you put your mind to it. Yeah, I know he's worth billions of dollars, per Forbes magazine, but it is his fortitude not to succumb to his the easier path. He doesn't kill, which could be the easier path. He doesn't succumb to the social, his personal character of Bruce Wayne and that lifestyle. His goal is his mission. Yes, that you could say is also his ultimate weakness, and that you have to find some balance. But that is an extreme, and we're reminded of that constantly by his Bat family, whether it's Robin, Dick Grayson, Robin, Tim Drake, even his son Damien, who's an extreme version of him, brings some humanity to him, and obviously Alfred. It's a reminder of the balance that we need to have. But his fortitude, that character's portrayal through the years, it's kind of inspired me to see that in so many others, starting with my parents, and reminding me of how much they had to sacrifice and do sacrifice to make our lives possible, make me being able to do this podcast even possible, because of the will they had to build from scratch, to make a life for themselves here in Canada, and basically give me the opportunity to do the same and pay that forward for my child, and build upon that generation through force of will and effort and hard work and belief that you can achieve something. So it's been quite awesome to have comics in my life. It's seeing those characters constantly overcome challenges, and the awesomeness of comic characters being able to just overcome anything that they face, even themselves, as Marvel has been great to show through their story arcs of Civil War, and many others. But it's really comes down to the individual characters for me, and how they are built up and how they're grown, and how they match up to how they're displayed in some of these movies is what really makes it very interesting to me. Don't get me wrong, I love the action, I love the superpowers. I was thinking about it, and I think Magneto is probably the supervillain with the best superpower power that I can think of. When I was watching the cartoon back in the day, actually, in fact, Jim Lee's iconic X-Men one cover is the first comic book I can actually remember ever reading and having in my life, and it's still to this day Jim Lee is impacting me because of all his incredible artwork, and now being the head of creative at DC Comics. So it's comics has been with me from an artistic standpoint too, although I can never get any of that art to work. But still, the nuances and purpose of those characters is what drives me and keeps me interested. And the constant storylines that they come up with have really, inspired you to always keep fighting forward. Because even to this day, for Batman, 75 years later, they're still facing challenges that they need to overcome, which means that we're only scratching the surface of what we're capable of, and we got to keep pushing always, for others, for yourself, for your family, but also most importantly for others if you can. So anyway, I think that's the gist of what interests me about comics, and anime characters as well. The journey they have to face and overcome, and I appreciate the comic book industry for always bringing it back and bringing back in a new way to remind us that we got to keep fighting and keep giving it our all. So without further ado, I'll let you enjoy this episode. Please have a great and wonderful New Year's and 2021, and love the heroes in your life and love all those around you. Stay safe, everybody, and welcome back to the Continental.